What if a server's response time down to microsecond could silently leak secrets like API keys or tokens? And what if tapping continue to sign in a mobile app quietly handed over your session to an attacker's app without a single prompt? I'm Amin Malikpour and this is Hacked and Secured Pentest Exploits Mitigations. Today we are diving into two advanced but very real threats: how timing attacks can break token verification and reveal protected data byte by byte, and how mobile OAuth flow using custom URL schemes can lead to full account takeover just by abusing silent login and browser sessions. If you build authentication flows or you try to break them, stay with me. This is episode 12, let's begin. We are starting this episode with something that might not sound interesting at first, just timing differences. But stick with me because this one goes deep. It's all about using time itself as an attack vector, not milliseconds but microseconds, and it actually worked. This finding was reported by James Kettle in a Portswigger article, and what he discovered was both simple and powerful. An attacker could steal secrets from web applications just by measuring how long each request took to respond. Before we jump into the details, let me explain the idea with a simple picture. Think about the door with a keypad. If every wrong digit makes the guard shake his head immediately, but the correct first digit makes him pause, you can stand outside and time the pauses. Longer pause, you guess the correct digit. That's exactly what many servers do with string comparisons and token checks. Compare one character at a time and bail out early on the first mismatch. Those tiny extra checks create tiny extra delays. If you can hear the pauses, you can recover the secret. So, how do you hear a microsecond pause on the internet? The trick is to reduce the background noise and collect clean statistics. James shows two big upgrades that make this practical. First, modern HTTP version 2 lets you run tightly controlled requests that cut away a lot of jitter. You can also synchronize requests in a clever way so processing starts almost at the same instant, which make tiny differences stand out. This timeless approach removes network variance from the equation and turns microsecond signals into something you can actually measure. Second, don't rely on a single request. Send bursts of them, warm up the cache, and look at the overall pattern. Use the median or the lower end of results so the outliers don't trick you. Alright. Let's get back to the finding and walk through it step by step. You start with a feature like forgot password or check token. You send the same request again and again for a value you know is invalid and you record response times. Then you change just one character toward the guess and repeat. If that guess is closer to the truth, the server often does one more comparison step internally, and that extra step costs a few hundred microseconds. Do this position by position. Find the slowest character for slot 1, lock it in, move to slot 2, and so on. With patience and automation, you can recover emails that exist, valid HMACs, API keys, and more, without ever seeing the secret in the response. The research shows real, repeatable wins on the public internet. Let's pause and think for a second. If you were testing an API and you suspected a timing leak, what would you try first? My advice: build two very similar cases, for example 2 tokens of the same length, and alternate them in batches. If case A finishes faster most of the time and case B is constantly slower, you have likely found the signal. Then script a guided brute force that uses timing to choose each next character. Keep your requests small and consistent, warm any caches, and measure medians over batches, not single shots. What about if you were the defender? Do you think your APIs are safe just because they don't return detailed error messages? What about timing? Even a few microseconds of difference can become an attack surface if the attacker is patient enough. So if you are designing, building, or defending applications, use constant time comparisons for anything involving secrets. Never exit early just because one character doesn't match. Many platforms have a constant time compare. Use it. Keep error messages and response shapes uniform. Add rate limits and lockouts on verification endpoints so attackers can collect thousands of samples quickly. Monitor for abnormal bursts of near-identical requests. Timing attackers need repetitions. And finally, assume timing is a data leak just like text in a response. So test your own endpoints with a timing harness before release. And for my fellow pen testers out there, don't dismiss timing because of noise. Use HTTP version 2 where possible. Batch requests and compare distributions, not single values. Build a clean test loop. Send the same request many times. Keep inputs the same size. Warm the cache first if you can. Measure the median or the average time. Repeat in batches. Look for delays that are small but repeatable. Compare two cases side by side. See which one finishes first more often. Patterns matter more than single numbers. If you see a signal, automate it. Let the script guess one character at a time and use timing to guide you. This might not be an easy exploit, but in the right place, it can be one of the most powerful ones. And one last reminder, only test timing in a safe environment or with explicit permissions. These checks are noisy and can cause lockouts or disrupt login flows. Alright, that was finding one. The web really does whisper secrets if you know how to listen. Next, we move from tiny time leaks to a mobile account takeover technique that abuses iOS sign-in flows. Very different surface, same attacker mindset. Stay with me. So far in this episode, we have talked about how to turn microseconds into data leaks. Now let's switch battlefields from servers to mobile apps. Finding 2 is about how a normal-looking continue to signing prompt inside a mobile app can hand your account to a completely different app without you ever typing a password. This was documented by Ivan Connolly on his blog. First, what kind of bug is this? It's an account takeover caused by the way some mobile apps implement OAuth together with the mobile platform's in-app browser sessions and custom URL schemes. Think of OAuth like a wallet system. You log in at the gate, you get a ticket, and later you trade that ticket for full access. If another app can quietly grab that ticket during the handoff, it can walk straight in as you. Many mobile apps use a browser window inside the app to log you in. The window shares cookies with the system browser, so if you are already signed in on the device, the login flow can just work. After login, the authorization server sends back a short-lived code to a special link that points back to the app. On mobile, that link back to the app is often a custom URL scheme, something like example app ://callback. When the browser hits that link, the operating system routes it to an app that registers the same scheme. Here's the problem. The in-app browser session can open a page on any domain the app chooses. The session has access to the device's existing browser cookies, so it already knows you are logged in. Many OAuth deployments allow silent re-authentication using a parameter like prompt = none, which skips all user interactions if you have a valid session. The app that opened the in-app browser can also declare which custom URL scheme it wants to receive. And when the flow redirects to that scheme, the platform hands the result back to the opener, even if some other app originally claimed the same scheme. Put all those together and you get a clean attack path. An attacker publishes a harmless-looking app from the official store. It registers a custom scheme that matches the victim's app OAuth callback, and it uses the platform's in-app browser session API. Inside that app, a button opens a trusted domain the attacker controls. That page instantly redirects the victim application's OAuth authorized endpoint using prompts = none and a redirect URI that uses the victim app's custom scheme. Because the in-app browser session inherits the user's existing cookies from the system browser, the authorization server thinks the user is already signed in and silently issues an authorization code. The browser follows the redirect to the custom scheme. The operating system returns that URL to the app that opened the in-app browser, which is the attacker's app, not the intended app. The attacker's app now holds a valid authorization code. It exchanges the code for an access token the same way the legitimate client would. At the end, the attacker's app gets a real access token for the victim's account. No password, no SMS, no prompts. You can trigger an OAuth flow from your app. You inherit the user's existing session. You ask for silent login and you receive the code via the target app's own callback scheme. With one tap on a perfectly normal-looking continue to signing prompt, you have their account. Ivan found this pattern across dozens of popular apps, and the platform behavior he used is by design. In-app sessions share cookies for convenience, and custom schemes are not uniquely owned. Unless developers opt in to safer patterns, the doors stays open. So if you are building, designing, or maintaining mobile applications, here's how to prevent this. Prefer universal links like real HTTPS links bound to your domain for OAuth callbacks instead of custom schemes. Universal links are strongly bound and not trivially hijacked. Avoid silent reauth by default. Require a visible user step when authorizing a client that cannot be strongly authenticated, and enforce a consent screen that shows the real domain and the real app name. Use ephemeral or isolated browser sessions for OAuth so you don't inherit the device's existing cookies by default. Strictly validate the redirect URI against a pre-registered allow list, and don't auto-approve repeated authorizations when the client cannot be reliably authenticated. And finally, monitor for unusual callback patterns, such as callbacks arriving from unexpected in-app sessions, repeated authorizations without user interactions, or code exchanges from unknown client identifiers. And some practical tips for my fellow pentesters. When testing a mobile OAuth flow, build a tiny test app that can open the in-app browser session, specify a callback scheme, and follow a redirect chain you control. Just think of it as open trusted page, immediately redirect to the target's authorized endpoint. Use prompt equals none and set the redirect URI to the target app's scheme. Watch the callback. Does your test app receive the code meant for the other app? If yes, try exchanging it at the token endpoint. If the exchange succeeds, you have proven account takeover. This finding shows how mobile OAuth can backfire. With custom URL schemes and silent reauths, the app that opens the in-app browser can also receive the callback and capture the code. So be careful. The simple continue to signing button can hand your account to a different app. Those findings today slipped under the radar, but opened the door to full compromise. They didn't rely on code injection. They worked because developers trusted timing and platform behavior to stay consistent and secure. But attackers don't always break in loudly. They slip through the cracks no one's watching, and that's why responsible disclosure matters. Because these are the kinds of flaws no scanner will find, and once discovered, they need to be fixed fast. If this episode gave you new ideas or helped you see a blind spot, share it with someone building secure APIs or working on mobile OAuth flows. It might help them prevent the next silent compromise. Let's make cybersecurity knowledge accessible to all. See you in the next episode.